Welcome back to the Fitness Stuff for Normal People podcast. I'm Tony.
And I'm Marianna.
And the fitness industry right now is not what it could be. It kind of sucks. It's become something built on unrealistic expectations and anything to drive sales and clicks, right? Just directing attention away from what actually matters. The bottom line is we're not just trying to provide you another fitness podcast. There are enough of those, but we actually want to give you the tools that you need to have confidence in applying the best possible training and nutrition into your own life. Where today's episode, we're doing our favorite, a little round robin, where we're taking the topics that don't need the level of detail that would require an entire hour-long episode, but taking them in bite-sized pieces, topics that still deserve to be broken down. And we're doing a couple today. Today, we're going to be talking about what is and how to actually get rid of stubborn fat areas in your body, PED and steroid use for women, the actual science behind getting a pump and how and when to use it to make your training and take it to the next level, and breaking down the trending app Yuka, which I've personally gotten about 5 million DMs about, which basically ranks the health of a food on a scale of 1 to 100 by simply scanning it in the app, telling you what's good and what's bad to eat. Problem solved. And before we get into it, if you want to make us smile, the easiest way you can do that is to give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you are listening to us on. And if you're over on Spotify, you can hit a follow button on our page. So every single Monday when we drop a new episode, you don't miss a thing.
And if you want more after each episode, you can join us on Fitness Stuff Premium for just $5 a month, where you get a bonus episode every single Friday where we answer your own questions. You also get access to all of our complete 12-week training programs that also have workout trackers in Google Sheets. We just dropped our booty building program. What's the name for that one, Tony?
The Glute Bible.
The Glute Bible a few weeks back, so you can get access to that there. You also get other sick perks like weekly Legion supplement giveaways, exclusive discounts for companies like Oura Ring, high-end blood work from Merrick Health, and much more. You can sign up in the show notes below. And before we get into it, a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Legion Athletics. Every week doesn't change there. From day one, our ride or dies. I'm really excited because I branched away. I've been obsessed with the Rainbow Sherbet pre-workout. If you haven't tried it, Tony put me on. It is so good. I cannot recommend it enough. I tried the peach ring and I liked it and I just got through it. And now I'm back on to the Rainbow Sherbet. And I'm just like, this is just superior. It's the best flavor. I don't know what it is about it. So if you need to re-up there or stock up, get some pre-workout, get some protein powder, that's where we're going to revert you to. They also have a great fish oil supplement, one of my favorites. It's called Triton. That's something that I recommend to most people because of its evidence for heart health. And everyone can benefit a little bit from that. And all their supplements are third-party tested, so it's a great place to go. You can also get 20% off your first order or double points on every order after that with the code FSPOD. We will leave the link in the show notes below.
Pow, pow. I've never asked this. I think I can guess. You're Spotify. Your team's Spotify.
Oh,
right?
my
Not
goodness.
Apple Music.
Of course I'm Spotify. Yes.
Okay. I didn't want to make any assumptions. It just blows my mind how some people are still not talking down on you, Apple users, but it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like the playlist that Spotify, have you been listening to their day list that they just dropped a few weeks ago? Like everyone's personal day list.
Oh, like that's custom tailored to you?
That changes like several times throughout the day. It gives you like a mood throughout the day that you're in. Mm-hmm. That just blows my freaking mind how much it snipes what kind of mood you are in.
It's scary.
It blows my mind. I'm trying to pick up. Let me see. What is mine? Like today, right? What is mine on HIT, like HIIT, future-based Tuesday morning? Because it's usually when I work out. It's like soft and somber Tuesday afternoons. It just knows.
It knows
what I'm feeling. It knows what I'm feeling.
I also hung new bookshelves if you guys are watching. So now you actually can see. Do you notice how I have another row of bookshelves?
Is there a lower?
Yeah. Jack added a whole other row. I just moved the books down, but now there's 3 rows of bookshelves.
I totally noticed and it looks fantastic.
Thanks.
I
really had to talk about it, guys. I'm lonely.
Not with those books. Not with those books. All right, let's start off the day.
After
one of the most frustrating topics that people can't understand. Stubborn fat. Stubborn fat. We were going to just talk about stubborn belly fat, but stubborn fat exists throughout the body.
Oh, yeah.
I know the most common areas are belly fat, of course, but there's underarm, there's thigh and hips. maybe
Yeah.
face or neck, even though that's usually the opposite for most people. But it almost seems like certain areas of fat are harder to get rid of than others. And that's true. Stubborn fat is a real thing. Certain fat cells in your body, they're much harder to shrink than others. And a lot of the time, I think people forget when you lose fat, people aren't really certain. Do you lose fat cells or do the fat cells actually just shrink? The fat cells just shrink. You're not losing fat cells.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important to first understand.
That's actually an interesting genetic component of obesity that I've always thought was a very interesting field of research is some people are born with a higher number of fat cells. So their genetic potential to be overweight or obese is higher than someone who has less fat cells. It's this area that it's not this excuse. It doesn't automatically mean you're going to be overweight or obese or it's impossible to lose weight, but you are at a little bit more of a genetic disadvantage, so to say, or you're more predisposed to putting on weight because you have more space to do so. It's an interesting, I think, field of research.
I'm wondering how large the differences between certain people would be.
I don't know off the top of my head.
That'd be interesting.
But, and yeah, so when you lose, like one of my professors used to always say, you're not fat, you just have fat cells. It's not you. Your fat cells are fat. You're
not fat. Your fat cells are fat. Well, I like it because that's basically what it is. Your fat cells are large. They're filled up. You got fat cells and they empty. So you're not gaining and losing fat cells. They're just getting bigger and smaller. Now, stubborn areas seem to be the areas that are just the last to ever get lean, if ever, when you're dieting. I know for myself, when I start to go into a deficit and I start losing weight steadily, the first place for me that always goes away is my neck and my face, which I hate because if I'm wearing like a hoodie or something like that, I look deathly skinny. I look like I've never lifted a day in my life and I hate it. And then the rest of my body or my stomach is the last to lose it.
You look gaunt.
What does that mean?
I said this to you when we were at Aloe.
Oh,
I'm trying to use, since I'm reading more, each week trying to use a new vocab word that I never used. And one week it was the word gaunt, which means
what did gaunt mean?
You look, your face is sunken in, like you look hollow in your cheeks and you look like deathly.
Yes, I just look gaunt. That was beautifully put. I just looked gaunt. The areas, at least those are for me. Have you noticed those for you? Certain areas are harder or more stubborn than others for you?
Yeah. My legs are so long that's never, and my extremities have never been a problem. I'm going to put fat on in my stomach, like first, and mostly that's where I hold it. Unless if I'm like really, really, really trying to be in a deficit, there's just a little bit there. That's just fine.
It's different for a lot of people, but those are the more common areas. Now, before we actually talk about the 5 things that we're going to talk about today to get rid of stubborn fat, there's that Diet Coke. The 5 things to get rid of stubborn fat that we're going to talk about, we have to understand it from a physiological place first. What's happening and why are these areas more challenging to burn than others? You have to understand the problem first before you try and solve it. So it's going to get a little sciencey here for a minute, maybe 2, and then we're going to pull it back and it's going to make a lot of sense. So I just want to give that forewarning because it is going to get a little sciencey. Now, when we talk about burning fat, what we're actually talking about is a 2-part process consisting of 2 things called lipolysis and oxidation. So lipolysis, the first part of that, is where fat cells release molecules of stored energy called fatty acids into the bloodstream. So that's lipolysis, the fat cell actually releasing what's inside. The oxidation is where the cells utilize or burn those fatty acids. So it's a 2-part. Your fat cells got to let it go, and then it's got to be burned. Now, the body's primary method of stimulating lipolysis, that first part of letting go of the fatty acids, is the production of adrenaline and noradrenaline. These are called catecholamines, which I always love that word. It's a little tongue twister if you say it 3 times fast. Now, catecholamines enter your blood, travel to the fat cells, and attach themselves to certain points known as receptors. Once they attach to these receptors on that fat cell, that's when this trigger or release of those fatty acids stored inside happens. Now, here's why stubborn fat exists in particular, like why not all fat cells are the same. Fat cells contain 2 types of these receptors, known as alpha and beta receptors. And it's actually really complex, but in a basic sense, think of it like alpha receptors slow down lipolysis, beta receptors trigger it. So alpha slows it down, beta speeds it up. Think of it like that, even though it's a little bit more complex. So the more beta receptors a fat cell has, the easier it is to let go of that fat to be burned. The more alpha receptors, the harder it is for that fat cell to let go of fat. This is mostly due to genetics of why certain areas have more or less in the first place. But that's why certain areas are harder to lose than others. It's just because certain fat cells have a higher or lower ratio of those alpha to beta receptors. So stubborn fat is just higher in alpha, where easy to let go is a little bit higher in beta. So although you can't target specific areas, we know that spot reduction does not exist. Even though we might have to review a couple of studies here coming up. Have you seen it came out in the last several months, but there's been a ton of circulating reels, TikToks, saying that spot reduction was proved by these studies to now be real, to now work. Have you seen those?
Only because the first time you told me about it, I ended up looking it up on TikTok. And
because I told you about this?
Yeah. It never had come up on my For You page, but since I looked it up, it has, which is
okay. And I was going to say, it kept coming up a lot, which we won't dive into those papers right now, but don't worry about it. It did not prove anything as far as spot reduction. You still can't do that, right? You can't choose, I just want to lose fat under my arm. I just want to use belly fat. Not how it works. But here are the 5 things that you can do to ultimately get rid of stubborn belly fat. You have to take a kind of game style approach to it. So number 1, none of these are going to be the most sexy answers in the world, but number 1 is you have to make sure you're in a large enough calorie deficit, and you have to be patient. You have to be patient. So yes, calories in versus calories out matters a lot. Making sure you're in a large enough deficit is going to help your body use all of its resources while you lose fat. Generally, the larger deficits up to like 20, 30% below your maintenance, meaning if you burn about 2,500 calories in a day, you're eating between 1,750 and 2,000 calories a day. That's where you ideally would want to be and stay at to target these levels. And stubborn fat, will be the last place you will lose this, right? It's going to use what's easy to use first, and it'll have to be consistent to push through to the very, very end. So that's number 1. You got to be patient. Number 2 is you got to make sure you're eating enough protein, right? We talked about this in the fat loss episode. We don't stop talking about it. But the number 1 thing that determines, the number 1 and number 2 things that determine if the weight you are losing is coming from fat or muscle is your protein intake. And then what we're going to talk about next is what style of working out you do. Do you lift weights? Those 2 things are going to protect, hold on to, and build new muscle tissue, making sure if you're losing weight, if the scale is going down, that it's coming from fat. It's not coming from muscle. And that's a really important part, because sometimes people will cut their deficit lower and lower and inadvertently cut their protein intake lower and lower, which just causes them to lose weight, but not the weight they want. They don't end up losing the stubborn fat. They end up losing muscle tissue, which is super, super frustrating, because that's almost just digging yourself a deeper hole. The third thing is, hand in hand with that, do heavy compound resistance training, right? We're not going to be talking about fasted cardio. We're not going to be talking about different methods like that, because heavy resistance training is going to help you preserve that lean mass. And if you're losing weight, the scale's going down, and you're preserving lean mass, it only can come from one other place. The 4th piece is going to be to strategically use cardio to burn fat faster. I say strategically because I think when I say do cardio, people just take that and run with it. Haha. But the strategy matters, right? This really comes in handy, I think, closer towards the end of your deficit. So in that patience part from the first step that we were talking about, this is where you want to do the minimally effective dose to start. If you're losing weight, if you're losing fat at a consistent rate, and you're not doing cardio when you start your fat loss journey, your goal, your diet, whatever, you shouldn't add on to that yet, because you know that your body's going to fight against you. You know you're going to adjust. Hold it on for later when things get harder, when you hit those plateaus, when you hit those walls, then start to sprinkle cardio in, because all that's going to do is create a larger gap for your calories in, calories out for the day. And that's usually the piece where most people give up, is the patience part. Okay. So I recommend, and I know you and I talked about this a lot in the cardio episode, sticking to lower intensity forms of cardio compared to higher intensity. But if you're listening to this, you should probably test out what's best for you, because you and I both, if I remember, our hunger goes to the moon if we're doing high intensity cardio. Even if I do 15, 20 minutes of high intensity cardio, it's insatiable. It's brutal. Sure. Like, you just can't eat enough. And what's going to erase your deficit is if you are starving 24/7. You can't beat hunger. No one's ever beaten hunger long term. Okay. So that's where, for most people, you notice lower intensity. So increasing your steps. If you get 7,000 a day, aim for 9 or 10,000. If you get 10, aim for 11 or 12. Increase from where you are. And that's generally not going to have too much of an impact on your hunger, but you might be different. Listen to yourself. If high intensity doesn't really spike your hunger and low intensity does for some reason, do what works for you. Okay. So add 3 to 4, 20 to 30 minute sessions at the end of your weight training each week. That can create a massive gap. And the last one, and I save this for last because it's the least important, like we always do with these, and it might not make too much of a difference at all, is taking the right supplements in time. And there's a couple that we can talk about that really help with this. Man, it's been freaking ages since, what was that? Was that the last time you were out here? We did the 5 fat loss supplements.
Yeah.
In like 2022. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Supplements for fat loss. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that was a long time ago.
No, okay, that was 2023. So, that was last year.
Oh, I'm spacing it up. But that was a freaking year ago. So we talked about this in the episode, all of these 3, but there's 3 that I think might be worth looking into. Number 1 is caffeine, right? The number 1 ingredient in pre-workout. That's going to be what determines most, like what you feel in most pre-workouts, is probably just the caffeine. Okay. So usually for fat loss, because this actually does have an impact, it, 1, increases the number of calories you burn and boosts your strength, endurance, and anaerobic performance in the gym. But it also can temporarily blunt or decrease your hunger if you use it correctly. And the recommended dose is between about 3 and 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight per day. I know there's a lot of different recommendations, but basing it off of your body weight's usually best. So using that strategically can make a little bit of an impact. The second one,
is that just because of how you metabolize it? Like, weight, is it like a tolerance thing that weight has to do with?
As far as like how it helps you lose weight?
Yeah.
It's a stimulant, so it's going to increase your heart rate.
Oh, no. Like determining how much you should have. Like,
oh, I think that's just a baseline recommendation for what's safe and what's been useful. But there are other people who, like, if you take 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight, if you're super, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're super, like, you have like 50 milligrams of caffeine and you're buzzing.
Like, just being more susceptible to caffeine's like effect.
I know, but there's like a word to it. Whatever, fuck it. But yeah, okay. So some people are more sensitive to caffeine than others. I personally am not. Like, I am good with a few 100 milligrams per day. Take a little pre-workout, have a coffee later in the day. Others, if they take like 50 milligrams, are buzzing. So that's just a general dose. But just like we were talking about for whether or not you should do steady state or high intensity cardio, do what feels right to you. If it serves you, if it gives you an impact, that's where I think it'd be what makes sense. The other one, which is super interesting, that's not talked about enough, which, dang, we might want to do, now I'm thinking about this, an entire round robin piece on ephedrine, which is really popular in the bodybuilding community. That was one really cool one that we talked about a long time ago, but we really do got to bring it up. But ephedrine is a stimulant that essentially kills your appetite while also significantly increasing your resting metabolic rate, or the calories that are just burned throughout the day, more so compared to pretty much any other natural compound that we know. And it works by binding to those catecholamine receptors in the body that we talked about earlier. And it's kind of crazy the impact that this can have and why it's more talked about in bodybuilding communities. There was a study that we pulled done out of the Pennington Biomedical Research Center, and it showed that in healthy overweight and obese adults, the combination of 70 milligrams of caffeine and 24 milligrams of ephedra increased metabolic rate by 8% over 2 hours compared to placebo. In over 12 weeks, ingesting a combination of ephedrine and caffeine 3 times per day led to a reduction of 7.9% body fat compared to only 1.9% in placebo. So these effects, I think, are worth being noted. And it's called the EC stack, or ephedrine plus caffeine. But the problem with ephedrine is you can't go to GNC and get this. It's an over-the-counter bronchitis medication is how you would take it in Broncaid. So you have to go over, and it's over the counter, but it is tracked. So you can't just go pick this up at a Walmart. You have to go to the pharmacy usually to pick it up, at least in the United States. But the biggest impact that ephedrine holds is appetite suppression. And I think that's where most people see the biggest benefit, is they just really push down hunger. And it's not uncommon for people who take this the first time to feel satisfied with just like 1,000, 1,500 calories a day, which I'm not recommending at all. But it's kind of like when you are in school and someone starts taking Adderall. And it's like, oh, I didn't eat today. And they're just noticing it at like 9 p.m. And it's like, oh, I just didn't notice it. Same thing is kind of happening here, where your hunger just gets pushed down. And that's usually the number one thing that pushes people or derails people from a long-term diet.
It's a different mechanism, but that's just what Ozempic does. It's obviously a different pathway how Ozempic targets like your hunger. That's people aren't hungry. Like,
yeah, it's shocking when you do that. Like that's what was my favorite part about Ozempic when it came out, is because it has no impact on your metabolic rate. It doesn't increase how many like calories you're burning. So everyone, all these years and years of like, oh, my metabolism's broken, I'm just not burning enough. It's like, watch what happens when you just stop eating so much. Oh, you lose weight fast.
Yeah.
I did love it. Now, the common dosage of this is around 20 to 25 milligrams of ephedrine per day, morning, noon, and early afternoon, usually in 3 doses. And the EC stack is when you combine it with 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine. And I think it's usually recommended to do the lower end with caffeine, just so it doesn't last, especially in that nighttime era, just so it doesn't impact your bedtime. And I just want to be clear before we move on to the next piece of it. I've used this myself and with several clients before, and it does come with risks like any stimulant does. So consult with someone before you just start taking something new. Anything that's a stimulant comes with certain risks. Check it out. Go to your doctor. Ask them if it's legit. Because I think it does have a place in helping, especially with that patience part that most people usually tend to hit the wall. But that's the stubborn fat. That's stubborn fat. You want to talk about something cool? Some a little hush hush?
Yeah. Well, people probably...
Female PEDs?
Yeah. Your favorite influencer, at least one of your favorite influencers, is probably taking steroids.
You're my favorite influencer.
One of your favorite female fitness influencers, gym girlies, is probably... Listen... Do I need to flex for you to show you that I'm not taking steroids? Because I will. My voice may be a little raspy, but yeah. And this is something I feel like it's a topic of conversation that is being discussed more. And there's a lot more women in the fitness community coming on, especially I've seen it more on TikTok and speaking to the fact that like, hey, I'm on steroids. This is my process. This is how I'm doing it. This is the reality of it. And I think that's such a good thing. But with that conversation, there is also now this bigger conversation of like, there are a lot of girls just like me who aren't telling you this and who are trying to sell their booty building guide or their workout program or what they're eating or trying to sell you a supplement. And they're not being honest about how they got the physique they got. Because no hate, no shade to someone taking steroids at all. Like, where the issue comes about is the deception and not being honest about it. And then trying to profit off of your audience without disclosing something that you're doing that has such a big effect on your outcome and how you look. And I think most people associate steroid use with the male fitness community.
Absolutely.
And
you think steroids, you think like big, bulk, buff. That's what I think the public thinks is steroid use, is you think of some jack dude with cap shoulders, traps that are up to his ears. That's what I think people think of when they think steroid use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a Phil Heath or something.
Yeah. And not all steroids do this. The very popular one amongst women is Anavar. So it's really, really common in the bodybuilding community, but even in people who don't bodybuild. It's very popular in LA. And why it's so popular amongst women is it's known as the women's safe drug, because you can use smaller amounts and get away with little to no side effects from it. And it's low on the androgenic scale and high on the anabolic scale. So what does that mean? It's less likely to produce male characteristics while still getting the benefit from muscle growth, but you're going to see smaller size and strength gains. It's for more of that very lean look. So that's why a lot of
people forget about that all the time. Like, steroids doesn't just mean one thing. I had this conversation when I went back to visit with family, just because I don't know, being in fitness, for some reason, people just start talking about anything fitnessy to you, which I kind of love, but it's kind of funny at the same time. But somehow the topic of steroids come up. And I think a lot of people see steroids as just one thing. Whenever you hear someone's taking steroids, you just assume it's one thing. It's like there are dozens and dozens of different compounds that do different things like this. People don't hardly realize, if they're outside of the space, that steroids can aid in a leaner, defined, more fit look compared to a bulky muscular. There's different things that just aim in different directions. And people forget about that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy to, especially if you're in bigger cities like LA or in New York, like Anavar is easy to get your hands on because most people are taking it. And it's definitely easier. And because it's safer, like even if you're getting it under the table, more people are more likely to take it because it is quote unquote safer. Now, Tony has asked me this question before, but it's like, where is this line between, do you think people should really be open about this and talk more about this? Is it a good thing? Or is this going to promote more use of it? It's almost like the legalizing marijuana thing. Is it being legal going to make more people abuse it? What's your take on that?
It is, because it has been something big in the men's fitness side for the last several years that's now becoming more common with females. You're right. The last several years were for guys talking about their doses they're on, the different stacks they're taking of different steroids, what they're doing. And we had this conversation with Alan too, didn't we? Because it's interesting, because it opens up. I mean, one, I think the more open communication, the better at the end of the day, no matter what we're talking about. But that doesn't mean it doesn't come with a lot of negative effects too. When people in the male side started being more open about steroid use, bodybuilders, physique competitors, because I mean, you would see these massive, just ripped comic book looking dudes who are claiming to be natural, and it sets the younger generations up for just extremely unrealistic standards. They want to look like that, and it's like they will kill themselves in the gym 7 days a week for years and look not even a tenth of what their favorite idol looks like. And they'll just think something's wrong with them. Or they're not good enough, or they're not working hard enough. It's like, oh no, they're just not telling you that half of their success is due to these compounds. So I think the openness of it is a good thing, because it gives people, I mean, realistic expectations. But on the male side, what you also see is a lot of younger men start taking these steroids way too early and at way too unsafe measures. Because a lot of steroids, and this is an unpopular opinion, but the more you really spend time over there, you realize the more steroids can be taken in good and bad ways, safe and unsafe ways. People can take steroids in a safe way that extends their lifespan, not takes away from it. But if you're young and you just want to look jacked and ripped, and you're impatient because you're 17 and you think everything comes at the drop of a hat, you'll just try and find anything you can online, which you probably can find anything online at this point in time. And you just start ordering it. It might not be unsafe. It might not be made or cooked properly. It might cause more damage than good. And especially when you're young and you're still in development, it can cause lasting damage to your endocrine system or your hormone system that I've seen just become beyond repair, which is really, really sad. So it's good and bad. I think, again, end of the day, open communication is better. But the more people are talking about it, the more good comes from it, the more safe use and safe expectations come from. Also, the more of those bad things happen. More younger kids are taking it. So it's interesting. Have you seen was it on the female side? Have you noticed, because it's become more open to talk about Is it too early to tell if more people are trying to get it wherever they can?
Yeah, I have no idea. Honestly, because I'm not directly involved in that space, I don't really know. It's this tough thing where it's like, I'm bringing up Ozempic again, but it's like with Ozempic, there are always going to be way more people taking it than you think, because when you have access to money and you know people, like, and then as this is especially comes with like the fitness influencers and celebrities, like you can't blindly trust that they always got that physique just
from hard
doing
work alone.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people that definitely have. So I don't want to, but I will always think that there's definitely way more people taking it than I actually think. Like I always have that in the back of my head.
Well, absolutely. At the end of the day, absolutely. Yeah. There's always going to be a little bit more. So it's good and bad. I do like, though, the fact that females are starting to open up about it, because I think that was just something before where if you weren't in this scene, you just would never think twice about those girls who are just insanely just shredded 12 months out of the year with an above average amount of muscle mass and next to zero body fat year round. People are just thinking it's like, oh, their workout program, 4 days doing full body in the gym a week is what got them this. It's like, no, that's not how it works. So I think it's a good thing that females are starting to talk about it more. And again, it's not a good or a bad thing if you take it, but it's that deception piece.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to, which is interesting because Anavar in particular with women, I think most people don't understand how it works, even in the sense where so many people see Anavar as something that boosts metabolic rate or helps someone just shred fat, which is actually kind of the opposite. It has like a mild impact on metabolism. I thought this was interesting to note, but its main impacts, because it kind of mimics testosterone in the body just without the male-like effects that come from like the deepening voice, the hair, all the stuff that women usually don't want. But it stacks two different things, which is it increases nitrogen retention in your muscle tissue and it boosts protein synthesis, making it so much easier to build and maintain muscle. So if you're a female physique athlete, it's not that it's something that's going to make you shredded while taking it, but it allows you to go in unreal calorie deficits where for a normal person, they would lose a ton of muscle while in that large of a deficit. But if you're taking Anavar, it increases nitrogen retention, which is crucial in muscle building, and it boosts protein synthesis. Two of those things that just allow you to not even just maintain, but sometimes build lean mass while you're in a massive deficit, causing you to shred body fat to insane levels. So it's not like just taking a pill is going to help you lose fat. The people who are taking it are usually eating very, 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 very little to maintain what they have, which is impressive on its own. But Anavar is an interesting one. Yeah. Anavar is a super interesting one that people don't talk about as much.
Yeah. I feel like just in general, like this is just my thoughts in general. There's so, and I know this is men and women in the fitness community, but especially with women, the lengths that a lot of women go to be so fucking lean, and especially like influencers or people in the public eye, it's really fucked up. Like it is really, really, really fucked up. And people just in general, obviously don't talk about that enough. Like not many people are going to go on the internet and say, yeah, hey, I look like this because I starve myself or because I throw up or because I take these drugs. But I feel like as a society, we need to, just with the standards we set and expectations, especially women, like need to be less fucking naive to that, because it just is, it happens like it, and it's really common. And I feel like I know that's a little bit of a side note.
No, but it sets people up for this expectation where it's like that, like, because females can attain some insane physiques.
For sure.
Insane physiques. And a lot of people, I think, see that as like their now dream physique. And they don't realize it is a nightmare to maintain. I think that's the best. I heard someone put it like that. It's like your dream body, whatever you think your dream body is, isn't something that is a nightmare to keep. Starving yourself, like killing yourself in the gym. If you're miserable 99% of the time, is it really your dream body? Probably not. Definitely not. So that's a big piece of it. But I think a lot of good's coming from it. I think a lot of good's coming from the openness. We're talking about Marianna's favorite topic next.
Oh God. I can't.
We're going to talk about the science of the pump. And I think we touched on this in a great way on the glute episode, the glute Bible episode. And we're going to draw a couple parallels here. But there is an actual science to the pump, and you can really use this to next level the gains that you're making in the gym, males or females. Now, for those unfamiliar, the muscle pump, quote unquote, I think guys talk about it more than girls, even though booty pump, that's a new thing that people
Booty
take
pump.
selfies of before the glute pump. Excuse me. But all this refers to is the temporary increase in muscle size that happens when you lift weights, especially when you use higher reps and shorter rest periods where blood flows and is sucked into your muscle while you're working out and just inflates it like a freaking balloon. Inflates it like a balloon. I mean, guys, you've heard the term pump cover.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if girls use pump covers, if that's just a dude thing.
They definitely
Probably.
do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's even thought of as a pump cover because it makes such a difference in your physique that people wear something big and baggy to the gym because they don't have a pump. They'll do a couple warm-up sets. They'll get the blood flowing. They'll get the blood back to their muscles. And then they'll take off the cover to reveal their actual physique, which is what is inflated by the pump. I even told you this. In my early teens, I would restructure my days where I would work out after school. I started working out before school just so I would have a pump to keep throughout the day and not go into school without having a pump. That was where I was at when I was a little high school Tony.
Yeah. I didn't know, like I technically guess I have pump covers and I'm like, I didn't know they were pump covers. I just have body dysmorphia and don't want to see myself in a gym mirror.
Or that too. Multiple uses. Now, I think George Butler and Charles Gaines, the authors of Pumping Iron, said it best. And I quote, "The pump feels like one of those fast-framed films of flowers blooming or seeds ripening. The muscles seem to actually go from pod to blossom in seconds underneath the skin." How beautifully put is that? Charles and George, good job at that.
I die.
It feels godlike, the pump.
I die. That's
Okay,
straight poetry from a man talking about a pump who that's what brings poetry out of a man. Is that you would never hear a man talk about his wife or his girlfriend that way, but the pump for sure.
I'm dead. That is the most accurate thing.
It is.
You'll never see a man write that about his wife, but the pump does it though. The pump does it. But the real question is, does this do anything for muscle growth, or is it just something that you can do to appear a little bit bigger sometimes? And after I stopped caring about the pump as much in my later years, you start to realize no one else can really tell a difference in you. If you're walking around the gym, other people can't be like, oh, that dude. You can tell if someone's got a sick, insane pump sometimes, but 99% of people don't notice if you have a pump or not. If you're listening to this and you're like little Tony who would restructure his day to have a pump going into certain scenarios. But the long story short is it's not necessary for building muscle, the pump. It's not necessary. It's far from the most important thing that you should be focused on, which is mechanical tension. But that doesn't mean it's useless. So here's what's going on inside of your muscle when you get a pump, and then we can relate this to how it actually can help you build more muscle. So when you contract your muscles to lift a weight, metabolic byproducts like lactic acid build up in and around those cells. And these substances contribute to the pump in a few different ways. So first, your heart pumps more blood into your muscles to carry these compounds away, to clear them out, which makes the muscles swell. The second is that these compounds also pull water into the cells, making them larger. And the third is as these cells expand, they actually reduce the amount of blood that's able to escape from that muscle. So that three little trifecta of things going on there cause your muscles to inflate like they do. So when your muscle fibers are relaxed, and this is why, blood can easily just pass in and out of them, but when they expand, that's when it gets pinched off, when it's trying to carry blood from the veins back to the heart. So the three main ways that I think people focus on pump training or increasing the pump, and we talked about this in the glute guide because it has a really good fit in not just glute training, but training any body part that you really want to focus on and grow, is usually those higher repetition, shorter rest periods, just higher volume, higher set workouts, right? So instead of taking 2 or 3 minutes to rest, like is usually best, shortening things down to like 30 to 60 seconds of, instead of anywhere from like 1 to 12 reps up to 15 and 20 reps, right? That's more pump style training. So here's how it can help you build muscle. And it is interesting to note, because I was reviewing this the last time we talked about this interesting study out of Central Florida that demonstrated that you can gain muscle without ever achieving a pump. And what they did essentially was they split 33 resistance trained men with an average age of about 24 into 2 separate groups. Group 1 trained in the 10 to 12 rep range, using 70% of their 1 rep max, resting only 1 minute between each set. So that was the pump group. And group 2 trained in the 3 to 5 rep range. So pretty much strictly strength at about 90% of their 1 rep max, resting 3 minutes between sets. You're not really going to achieve any sort of pump training like that. So pump style versus strength style. And both groups, they used the same exercises, did the same number of sets, and trained the same number of times per week. And in the end of the study, both groups gained about the same amount of muscle, even though there was a small trend for greater gains in the group that used heavier weights. But they both gained muscle, showing that neither one nor the other alone is going to dictate your progress. There's a few reasons why I still think, and before we talk about when and why you'd use this pump training, heavy training should make up the majority of your progress, is because in our episode about progressive overload that we probably mention every single episode on here, we talk about how mechanical tension is responsible for about 70+% of muscle growth, right? Not muscle damage or breaking down, not the pump or metabolic stress that you're putting on your muscle there, but mechanical tension, progressively overloading mechanical tension, or how much weight and tension you are applying to that muscle. And heavy weights is just the best way you can do that. But where the pump really comes in handy is, like we were talking about, those second and first order consequences, and why we structure this in our glute training program. But I think anybody who's focusing on any individual muscle group could use this. Is one thing you notice when you get a pump in any muscle is that mind muscle connection, and the amount that you actually feel that muscle working during a set is so much higher. So much higher. That's where activation exercises come from, and why we have certain glute activation exercises in that training program of doing high repetition, high volume sets on your glute med, that upper outside part of your glute, for example, before going into a heavy set of hip thrusts, is because you'll get so much more activation from your glute med in those hip thrusts, applying more tension to them when you train them with a pump beforehand, or even afterwards, just taking them to complete exhaustion. So I know if you're younger, a lot of the time what you do to train, especially if you're a guy, is chasing a pump, or girls sometimes for glute training, all they do is high volume just to chase a pump. It's helpful if you probably use it less than 30% of your total training, right? Less than a third of your total training coming from that. But if you're not using it at all, I think you could really see a lot more progress by strategically putting this style of training into your program. And this is, I think I was telling you this when Legion came out with their pump product for their pre-workout that's specifically just designed for the pump, which, by the way, is freaking insane. Like, literally think your skin's going to tear. You notice on those harder to target muscle groups so much better of a feel. My rear delts, for example, a lot of people have a hard time targeting those. When I'm taking the pump powder specifically, and I then start to do a couple higher rep sets before my workout, the feel and contraction I get from my rear delts are 10 times better than I would have before. So there is a science to the pump of why it's working, how it's working, and how it's helping you. But I wanted to say that to kind of all balance in why I think some people are either making this their entire style of training and why that's not optimal, but also that people that completely ignore this style of training are not getting as much as they can out of it. Mm-hmm. You know, so the pump matters, but it's not all that matters. It does look sick on top of that. I'm going to get that quote framed on my wall. That's what we should do when we have an FS. When we have an FS studio, an FS pod studio, we should get that quote on the wall. Not like a live, laugh, love. We should get the pump quote from Pumping Iron. That would be dope. That'd be dope. Okay.
Write it down.
Let's finish this off. I want you to explain to me this freaking Yuka app that people keep talking to me about.
Dear God.
Which, from my understanding, let me tell you what I think it is, because I have not used this app, and then you can break it down for me. Is an app, I mean, similar to like an app like MyFitnessPal, where you can scan foods and barcodes. is you pick up a barcode from whatever food you're about to eat and you scan it. And it essentially ranks a food from like 1 to 100 and color codes it like green to red on whether or not you should eat it or not. Is this a healthy food or non-healthy food? Which I think to a lot of people, I'm not saying this for myself, but I think a lot of people see that as, holy crap, this is genius.
Yeah.
All I need is someone to tell me what to eat and what not to eat. That's all I'm missing is someone to tell me what to do. So like, oh, this app is perfect. If I just eat what it tells me to eat and ignore what it tells me not to, that solved all my problems nutritionally. I mean, is that kind of a basics of what the app is?
Yeah. Yes. So it essentially tells you, the Yuka app tells you how healthy a food product is with a rating. And that's exactly it. You said 0 to 100. That's what it gives you. It literally tells you if a food is good or bad. And how many times have Tony and I said, food is not black and white. You really cannot say whether or not a food is good or bad for your health without completely knowing a person's anatomy, physiology, their lifestyle, their genetics, their stressors. You cannot tell someone that without knowing them. The first red flag, because I did download this app. I want to see if we could have some of these pictures overlaid. If not, then you guys could download the app and see what it does. But I downloaded it because I wanted to do it. I wanted to see what it was like. Biggest red flag, right off the bat, they didn't ask for any information about myself. Not even the basics like my height, weight, and my gender. Not even
not even that?
Not even that. So essentially, it knows nothing about you already and is trying to tell you whether or not a food is good or bad. That was my first red flag. It's like, how could you know whether or not something is going to be bad for me if you absolutely know nothing about my health? So that was the first thing that went off in my head. But the first food that I tried was this popcorn, Lesser Evil popcorn, which is so good if you haven't had it before. And it's organic. It has all of the classic like health halos around it. Like this is organic, non-GMO. It's made with coconut oil. Like all of the labeling steers to it being like a healthy packaged food, which I think is funny because I scanned it and it gave me a poor rating. It says it's poor, 40 out of 100. And so the color is orange. So red is like really bad. Green is really good. So it's almost in the middle. And I'm like, all right, why is this poor? It gives you the negatives. So it says that it is too fatty because it has 5 grams of saturated fat per serving. It has too much sodium because it has 230 milligrams of sodium, and a bit too caloric at 120 calories per serving. Just so you know, that's like I think it's like 3.5 cups is the serving size and 120 calories. It's great. Like it's super high volume, like low calorie food. First of all, you cannot, and this is the person who went to school for nutrition, got my master's in it, all about nutrition and health. You have no idea whether or not something is too many calories or is too much sodium or too much fat without knowing who you're talking to. So my question is like, for who? Too fatty for who? Based off of what?
Yeah, that was my first question about it. Where is it basing these recommendations from? And is the answer just, it's like it's not basing it from anywhere?
It is. It's basing it off of the 2,000 calorie diet and the general like food guidelines like the USDA puts out. So if you're eating a 2,000 calorie diet, you should eat this many grams of fat, or like just the general recommendation.
Like the most basic of basic goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's insane to me. And also, like, how is 120 calories? Why is that too caloric? Like, it doesn't tell you why. It doesn't give you any information as to why. So for me, I'm like, everyone's calorie needs are different. Everyone's fat. And so like, it's all different for everyone. And so it also tells you the positives though. The positives is that it's organic. Okay. It is an excellent source of fiber. It has some protein, 2 grams of protein. So for me, another red flag is you're telling someone that 2 grams of protein is good. That's not a high, you shouldn't even highlight the protein factor because it has no impact on this food. Low sugar, 1 gram, and no risky additives. So those were the positives. And it will give you a recommendation as an alternative. So something labeled as a good food. So I clicked on the good food, which is Skinny Pop, which has a 64 out of 100, and it has the green good. The negatives, just like the other one, was that it was a bit too caloric and a bit too much sodium at 110 milligrams of sodium. So that's the same as the other one.
Here's what I'm confused about, and maybe you can answer this.
Mm-hmm.
It has 150 calories compared to 120 in the other one. Was the other one rated red for calories, and this one's rated orange for calories, and like the negatives?
Yeah.
So it's not even consistent.
It's not consistent. The positives of this food was that it has no additives, organic, has some protein at 2 grams, no sugar, all the same, right? Everything has been the same so far with the other product. The only thing that gives this food recommendation a leg up and makes it good is that it is low in saturated fat. It has 1 gram of saturated fat per serving compared to 5 grams of saturated fat per serving.
Which
that
neither
is
of those
what
are really high at all. Like 5 grams is not a ton of fat.
No. And this has more saturated fat, the lesser evil, because it uses coconut oil versus Skinny Pop uses some sort of vegetable oil. And oh no, it's telling you that a product is good that uses vegetable oil. Like, sound the alarm, crazy.
I don't get the consistency in it, because if it was basing it off of just a 2,000 calorie diet and recommendation, then all of the same, anything that would be over a certain amount of calories would be good or bad.
Yeah.
So it's confusing to me how something with higher calories can be considered less bad than something with lower. That the consistency factors.
Yeah. It really gives you nothing. Like, if you have these questions, you don't get any answers. It's not giving you an explanation ingredients wise. And the fact that these products are almost identical except for the fat, but one is good and one is bad. Again, for who? We don't know. Based off of what? We don't know. And it's one thing if you're not making a health claim, if you're just, this is informational, like an easy way to go look at the nutrition information.
Yeah.
If it was a resource helping you understand saturated fat levels a little bit more, fine. But this is intended to tell you whether or not something is good or bad for your health. If that's the intention, you got to tell me why and back it up. And you got to know me. You got to know who you're talking about, and you don't. So I did it again with definitely a more ultra processed food, like a protein bar. I scanned a no-cow protein bar and it gave me a 36 rating. So this was poor.
Good.
No good. And the negatives were that it has additives and a bit too fatty. Again, the saturated fat at 3.5 grams. Positives.
Oh, wait, what does it want a food to have? 0 fat? For
I don't fucking know.
I
don't know.
3.5 is too much fat.
Yeah. Again,
That's
those
insane.
are the only negatives. Positives, 20 grams of protein, 15 grams of fiber, low calories. So 200 calories apparently is low for whatever reason. 8 grams of sugar, which is a positive, and low sodium, 150 milligrams. So I'm going to get into the additives. It's really the additives piece that makes this so bad. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I just want to talk about...
that was the only thing that caused us to get a 36 out of 100.
And the saturated fat.
Is the 3.5 grams of saturated fat, which was too much. And then the fact that it had 3 additives were the only 2 things.
Yes.
Everything else was positive, but the only 2 things knocked it from a 100 down to a 36.
Yeah. Actually, let's talk about these additives first.
I was going to say, these additives must be like straight up gasoline and like lighter fluid.
Any food that has these additives, that's going to really plummet its score. I found out I did a bunch of other ones and that was consistent across the board. If it had these additives, you're not getting anything with a good rating for sure. But so the additives are all artificial sweeteners, which we have a whole episode on those if you want to listen to it. But glycerol, stevia, and erythritol. And they say each says it's limited risk. So for me, I'm like, okay, it's doing a risk assessment. I click on it. It gives you more information. I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. It's going to tell me why it made this claim. And so I click on it and I click on, say, erythritol. And it's off the basis that this is a limited risk based off of studies that are animal studies or petri dish studies that are looking at safety limits for erythritol. So the cap at which this much erythritol may cause disease. So these are important studies. You're going to overdose rats with a lot of erythritol so we can understand the point at which this ingredient may cause disease in humans. Like, just even slightly scratch the surface. So it does not take these studies that they're referencing. One, are not human studies. One, are not conclusive to say X causes Y, or this causes disease, or is actually something that humans should be risky of. No, it includes all data, whether it's observational, if it's just a case study, if it's on rodents, if it's in a lab, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take, the biggest piece is it doesn't take dosage into account. If you are claiming any ingredient is harmful, you have to provide evidence that they're harmful at the amounts found in foods. And for all of these additives, they are not considering the amount found in these foods. So
that's what did it for me.
That is the biggest piece that you need to wrap your head around. Yes, there are going to be studies out there that have mega doses of erythritol that may be potentially harmful. Those doses are not allowed in food. We are not allowed to see that in food. And this app does not consider that across the board for all additives. So that's where you get this very low rating. But it doesn't even apply to food because you would never see that amount in foods. So it actually has no application here whatsoever. And that infuriates me because
well, that's the only thing that's saying that something is a 36 out of 100 is this simple fact. And we've talked about the poison makes, or the dose makes the poison every single time. Like you drink 1 liter of water every hour on the hour for the rest of the day, and you're dead by the time you'd normally go to bed.
Yeah.
There's a dose where everything can kill you. Vitamin D, we've talked about this. Vitamin D, most people know it for its insane benefits at certain doses. If you mega dose vitamin D at like 50,000 IU per day, it will become toxic and it can kill you.
Yeah.
Vitamin D, something like that, but people don't transfer that to anything else like erythritol or aspartame. It's like, oh, if you mega dose and literally inject rats with 25 to 50 to 100 times what could ever be consumed through food alone every day, consecutive days, and they start to develop disease. If you do that with any compound, do that with vitamin C to a rat. They don't talk about it. Do that with a vitamin or something that people think is good. If you mega dose them, bad things will happen.
Yeah.
So that's crazy to me that they don't even think how much erythritol is in this no-cow protein bar. They don't even ask that question. They just say, oh, it's bad. It gives you a risk for disease.
Yeah.
How is this app legal?
I absolutely hate it. And it's just infuriating, even more so when you look at the replacement option they give you. So the first one that I clicked on that it said to eat instead of this is an RX bar. It's a chocolate sea salt protein bar. It has a 69. It's good versus this 36. What makes it good? First piece is that it has no additives. That's the positive. It has fruits and vegetables in it, an excellent source of protein, 12 grams compared to the 20 grams found in the one that is so-called bad. It has 5 grams of fiber compared to the 15 in the one that is apparently bad. Now, if we are going on, it's a processed food. At the end of the day, they're both processed foods. So they're not going to be the gold standard for getting your fiber and protein. But if I am looking at a protein bar, if I'm recommending a protein bar to any client, anyone looking for a good source of easy source of protein, considering it's a protein bar, I want to look at the amount of protein, the total calories, and if there's any fiber content in it. That is what matters. It's a processed food. It's not going to be the best thing for you at the end of the day. And also, you want it to be fairly low in sugar. I typically say if it's 200 calories, like you don't really want more than 10 grams of sugar, but it's not going to kill you or anything. It's just an added bonus if it's a little bit lower in sugar. And this birthday cake protein bar that is a 36 is going to tick all of those boxes for me. If we're not talking about taste and preference, I would every single day of the week recommend this no-cow bar for what it is. It serves the purpose for what it is.
Less sugar too, doesn't it? Has
less sugar.
Quote unquote good bar, the RX bar with almost twice as much sugar.
Yeah. So across the board, this no-cow bar, if we're looking from an ingredient standpoint and the benefits of it being high in fiber, protein, low in sugar, lowering calories, that's the winner. The only difference that they're really, really taking into account here is the additives and the saturated fat, which the saturated fat difference is 1.5 grams. It's negligible. It has no impact.
Wait a second. So 1.5 grams of, I'm looking at the same sheets you are. 1.5 grams of saturated fat is enough to take one food from bad to good.
Yeah.
Is 1.5 grams of fat. And they're going to ignore the sugar. They're going to ignore the fiber. So the lack of consistency is what is the biggest red flag to me.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And they really scare you with these additives. That's like, and I mean, yeah, it has artificial sweeteners. Who cares? Some people, maybe from a digestion standpoint, some people with all those artificial sweeteners, I know can, especially if you have IBS, can hurt your stomach a little bit. That's fine. Choose the RX bar. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't have those. That's an individual difference. And that makes sense. But where this is making recommendations for the larger, assuming in order to make these recommendations, this app has to assume everyone is the same because it is telling everyone the same exact thing. This is good or bad for your health. So it has to assume every single individual is exactly the same. And what do we know? That's obviously not true. That's just not the case.
Well,
so it
crazy.
holds no value. This app holds zero value for anyone.
Less than zero. Like I think it's negative value.
It honestly does you a disservice. It
improperly makes it way more confusing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I mean, just think about this for a second. If you're listening, it's like, well, why can't they just make recommendations? Let's say just Marianna and I, for example. Okay, one's male, one's female. Let's say my goal is to bulk up and build a lot of muscle and gain weight. Let's just say her goal is to lose weight or vice versa. It doesn't matter. She's trying to bulk up. I'm trying to lose weight. Just based on the different goals alone would make certain things better for me and worse for her. Mm-hmm. Like just based on goals alone, not even the difference of, let's say, a 45-year-old mother using this and an 18-year-old high school athlete male. Like people are so freaking different. Which this is what kind of sucks is what I'm just seeing this as is I feel like when you see this on the surface, if you're outside of this industry, for most people who find nutrition confusing enough as is, this almost seems like the golden solution you've been waiting for. Nutrition is so confusing. Yeah, it's like it's just so complicated, so confusing. I just want something to tell me what to do and what not to do. This app comes along, it says, cool, eat the green, don't eat the red. We're going to rate it for you. That's all you got to worry about. None of this will not give you anywhere closer to your goal, could make you further away. And all it's going to do is make things more confusing for you in the future because you're going to think things are healthy or unhealthy based on an additive. That's so ridiculous.
A thought that I had about the hypocrisy of this app and a lot of the people who support it is a lot of people have a problem with the healthcare system and the standard of care in the US, which as they should. A lot of the issues being, especially with primary care, you're in, you're out. If you have an issue, it's typically brushed off unless if it is a very, very prominent issue. Preventative care is not a primary mode of care in the US. It's very unfortunate, but prevention is not what makes our healthcare system money. That sucks. And that is terrible. And they get away with a lot of this quick care in and out by assuming everyone is the same, using this general population health data, general metrics of this person is around the same weight, same age, same height as you. So this is what we're generally looking for. It's not personalized. It's not individualized. You have to fight tooth and nail to get blood work
oh my God.
If you can even afford it.
I was going to say, I'm diabetic and I get blood work easily, but when I talk to people who are interested in it, why we partnered with Merrick Health to get high quality labs done.
Yeah.
It is insanely challenging to get not just blood work done because the basic of most basic panels that doesn't really test for that much besides like a lipid panel and maybe a metabolic panel, which is useful to some degree, but not a hormone panel, nothing else to investigate your cardiovascular risk, nothing.
Yeah.
Is you're paying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars out of pocket sometimes to get an accurate look at what's going on inside.
Yeah. And so where I'm going with this is that should be criticized. That's a problem. Is it going to change? Unfortunately, no. But a lot of these wellness junkies are very open about how that's a problem and do not trust pharmaceutical industry or do not trust doctors and want to find their own way for health and healing, yada, yada. And these same people will preach a fucking app like this that does the same exact thing, but actually worse. Definitely actually worse. Trying to tell you exactly what to eat based off of your health. It's not getting any data. It's not doing any extra digging about who you are as a person, but it's telling you what you should and shouldn't do based off of assuming you are the same as every single other person. That's a hypocrisy. I just thought about that because I'm like, it's so hypocritical because it is feeding into that system of what we do in the US, where we treat everyone as identical. And unfortunately, there are principles of nutrition when it comes to weight loss and certain diseases. There's certain principles of nutrition that are standard. The recommendations are going to be the same, straightforward. But there is so much nuance when it comes to nutrition and health. It is confusing. It is confusing. That's why dietitians, albeit the field is they're so underpaid and dietitians get treated like shit. But that's the reason why now dietitians are required at minimum to go through 6 years of school, required to get a master's degree, required to do a full fucking year of unpaid labor in a hospital before they can sit for their exam, because it is a health field and it is in the healthcare field and it is so complex. And so there's a reason for that.
That's
when we're
like,
talking about nutrition and health.
How this app is even legal in the first place. Because for a dietitian to be able to give you this kind of advice, they have to go through all of that. And this is just an app saying like, good, bad, don't even know you, who cares? Like, I'm surprised that it's legal, but
yeah. So I could rant about that forever.
Long story short, don't download the Yuka app unless it's for a good time, having some fun with it.
That's the episode.
That's the episode.
Ooh, go see Dune 2.
Go see Dune 2. If you're over on FS Premium, we'll talk to y'all this Friday for our weekly AMA and supplement giveaways like always. Everybody else, we'll talk to y'all next Monday. Ciao.
Whoop, whoop.